Let me see if I can get this thing to move. There we are. So this is a quotation from Laudato Si, one of the documents of Pope Francis, which is getting a lot of publicity lately. And he talks quite a bit about the family and about love. And initially, he talks about ecological education can take place in a variety of settings, at school, in families, in the media, in catechesis, and elsewhere. So he's just talking in general about ecological education. But then he goes on to say that good education plants seeds when we are young. These continue to bear fruit throughout life. We could put that in the context of seeds of love, sown by parents in families that over time continue to bear fruit throughout our life. Here, though, he said, I would stress the great importance of the family, which is the place in which life, the gift of God, can be properly welcomed. Are you able to see that? Is it flashing on your screen? Can you hear me? Paul, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I think I've lost you, have I?
Can hear you, Father.
I can't.
We can hear you, Father.
Okay, I can't. I couldn't hear you for a minute. Is the PowerPoint was flashing quite a bit there? I'm in Kisumu, and I wonder if the connection is coming and going. But we're going okay. Okay, because I couldn't read the screen, but now it's flashing. Area. We'll see what we can do. So the place in which life, the gift of God, can be properly welcomed and protected against the many attacks to which it is exposed, and can develop in accordance with what constitutes authentic human growth. No? Okay, so in the face of the so-called future culture of death, the family is at the heart of the culture of life. And here's then where he says that in the family, we must first learn how to show love and respect for life. So one of the key focuses and goals of the family and family life is love. God is love, we read in Scripture. We can't think too frequently about that statement. And as followers of Christ, well, we're called to show love in all situations, and particularly to teach love. And it's in the family that all that has to take place first and foremost. John Paul II liked to say that the family is a school of love. So he says we're taught the proper use of things, order and cleanliness, respect for the local ecosystem, and care for all creatures. So this love that we try to practice is something that reaches to many different things. And he says these simple gestures of heartfelt courtesy help to create a culture of shared life and respect for our surroundings. Heartfelt courtesy. Love shown through courtesy, which is manners, which is attention to other people, it's charity, it's thoughtfulness. The child learns these things. The parents have to try and transmit these things with their own words and with their own example. St. Josemaria Escriva, the founder of Opus Dei, says that every Christian home should be a place of peace and serenity. In spite of the small frustrations of daily life, an atmosphere of profound and sincere affection should reign there, together with a deep-rooted calm, which is the result of authentic faith that is put into practice. I find this a rather beautiful phrase. Every Christian home, peace and serenity, because of love and because of charity. When hearts are treated with love, they open like flowers to the sun. So you need an atmosphere of profound and sincere affection, not just a superficial thing, but something very deep that is growing all the time. And that should reign there together with a deep-rooted calm, the result of authentic faith. So love in the family often comes as a result of faith. And so our families then are meant to be places of peace, of joy, but also of fun, of placing our heart into things, of rest, of warmth, having a good time. Children and everybody in the family should be able to have a good time at home, a blessed place to be, happy to be at home. Doesn't mean that we always have a good time at home. There's work to be done, there are chores to be fulfilled, homework, etc. But the overall thing is that it's a good place to be. At the same time, there's the crosses, there are struggles, there's work, there's contradictions. But we need a lot of fortitude and self-denial to forget about ourselves. One of the key aspects of trying to live a practice of love is forgetting the self, our egoism. The greatest obstacle in our spiritual life is egoism, love of self, selfishness. And that's always there. In our families, in the love we try to portray there, well, we should try and have a great sense of treasure, sense of a great bargain. This family, this home, this mission that I've been given to transmit love. We can have a great sense of calling. It's a vocation. I heard a story of there was a meeting of priests one time in Singapore where I used to live. An elderly Belgian priest, missionary priest, stood up. We were talking about vocation. And he said, I learned the meaning of vocation from a young married couple in the States on my first assignment as a 28-year-old priest. This couple, one woman's name was Nancy. They were expecting their first baby. And the baby turned out to be a Downs baby. And the doctor said to the woman, are you ready to accept this child? I can't tell you it's going to be easy, but I can tell you that for every ounce of love that you put into this baby, you're going to get a pound of love in return. And Nancy said, yes, I'm ready to accept whatever comes. This priest said, I was very moved by that, because nobody says, I want to get married and have a handicapped child. But he said, from that young married mother, I learned the meaning of vocation. To be ready to accept whatever comes. To love my vocation and to give myself in love with that sense of calling. He said a few years later, I was asked to go and work in Rome and handle the architectural work and the planning work and the financial and the legal work of our organization all over the world. One day somebody came and said to me, what are you doing here working behind a desk in Rome? You're supposed to be off in Alaska or Brazil someplace. And he said, I got my answer from Nancy. I didn't ask for this job. I don't particularly like it. Much prefer to be somewhere else. Any other job but this, any other place but here, any other time but now. But he said, I try to accept whatever comes. If somebody came to our organization and said, well, I'm willing to join your organization as long as I can do all the jobs I like and work in the places I like. Well, they would be told, well, I'm sorry, you don't have a calling to our organization. Part of the deal is that you have to be ready to accept whatever comes. And so love in the family and transmitting love and living love involves that reality of trying to accept whatever comes, because many different things can come in our life, as a mother, as a father, as a child, financially, employment, health-wise, exams, success, failure. But if we have that sense of calling, and my God-given mission, and the God of love is with me, that helps us in many ways. Helps us to see the star of our vocation. We're told when the wise men went forth from Jerusalem, the star that they'd seen in the east, which had disappeared, it reappeared. And they rejoiced exceedingly. There may be moments in our marriage and family life when the star that might have disappeared, will we see it again? And so we can ask ourselves, well, how am I following the star? Am I enjoying my vocation? Am I going forward in love and putting more love into this family? You see, we live in a culture of feeling. Hollywood tells us that love is feeling. And other organizations tell us that taste the feeling, feel the feeling, love the feeling. You can't beat this feeling. But Christ on the cross did not say you can't beat this feeling. He said, greater love than this no man has, that he lay down his life for his friends. And so he teaches us that love is sacrifice. When a father or a mother sacrifice themselves in a daily way for each other and for their children, Well, they teach children what love really is, which is the greatest and most important lesson that they have to teach. And so we can go to the source of love in the sacraments, the Blessed Sacrament, Sacrament of Confession, to draw love from there. Pope St. John Paul liked to say that the Church draws her life from the Eucharist. He would also say the Church draws her love from the Eucharist. If we want to learn how to love a little more, it's to Christ that we have to go. And in these days, in preparing for Pentecost, with the Spirit of love, it's a great time to ask the Holy Spirit to come and fill the hearts of your faithful. Inspire my family and my marriage with greater authentic love. And so God, with our calling, gives us the grace, the necessary grace to carry out our mission, which He has given to us in spite of our defects. So my challenge in this particular moment, in this particular situation, is to show love, respond with love. And St. Paul tells us, charity is patient, charity is kind. Often a few kind words go an awful long way. I read a quotation from Mother Teresa this week that says, a few kind words may seem very little, but often they can last for eternity. And we're called to live out this life of love, this witness of love, and not in spite of our weaknesses, but because of our weaknesses. We all have certain miseries, certain defects, or we find it difficult to show love. But we have the grace to do so. The family is the only institution where we learn life's most sacred lesson, unselfish love. Love is giving. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son. Whenever Pope St. John Paul talked about love, he always talked about love in terms of giving. And so it's a very good thing to teach children to give things to their brothers and sisters, like Christmas presents or birthday presents, or their time, or help with their homework, or help with their chores, so that they learn from an early age to forget about themselves and to think about others. John Paul II, in his various documents of the family, one particular one, Familiaris Consortio, it's on the internet, great document to read again and again, talks about the family as the school of deeper humanity. We learn how to be human beings in a deeper way. And all that is tied up with love. We're here to build a civilization of love. And that starts with our own home. Bring about the sanctuary of life, the culture of life. He said the family is a school of love, school of virtue, school of the soul. When you teach your children to say their night prayers or their morning offering, or other odd moments when you try and say the Regina Caeli with them, or teach them basic prayers like the Memorare, these may be prayers they will be remembering at their deathbed. Because the family is the school of the soul. And all of the time, you're transmitting that message of how to love. Occasionally, there may be explosions, contradictions, difficulties, tempers. But then when all of this has calmed down, we begin again. I heard of a lawyer in Sydney who was approached by a couple. He was 86 and she was 83. He said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "We want to get a divorce." "And why do you want to get a divorce?" "Because we don't love each other anymore." And so the lawyer tried to remember all the points from the last talk on charity that he'd heard at his last retreat, and began to give them an impromptu talk on charity. Charity is patient, charity is kind. It's letting the water flow under the bridge. It's not making a mountain out of a molehill. It's forgiving, it's letting things pass, it's understanding. Went through a series of points of what love really is, and asked them to go away and think about it for a while. They weren't very convinced, Well, the husband said, okay, we'll give it a go. 3 years later, the wife came back to tell him, look, my husband just passed away, but I want to thank you because we've just had 3 of the most wonderful years of our whole life. And so the moral of the story is that we're always beginning and beginning again. That sense of calling leads us to launch out into the deep. There are solutions to all problems, and that begins with love. We have to learn how to show love in concrete ways. I know a couple in another country who have a system in their marriage whereby they call for time out once a month or twice a month, and they sit down and they write out everything that has bugged them in the past 2 weeks, feelings they've had, thoughts, criticisms, things that may be difficult to say but much easier to write. And they spend 30 minutes or 60 minutes writing these things down, and then they swap papers. And they realize what's been going on in the life of the other one. And then they apologize and they begin again. You take very good care of communication in your marriage and in your family. You put down very stable building blocks to go forward in love in all situations. John Paul II liked to say the future of humanity passes through the family. At a conference on ethics in Strathmore University about 10 years ago, there was a British Lord, Lord Alton, the main Catholic Lord, was giving a speech, and he said a very interesting statement. He said, only Christianity is capable of changing the hearts of men. Governments can't, NGOs can't, only Christianity can. We have the great treasure and means within our reach to change hearts. And so our vocation and mission develop first of all in the family environment. It's our first apostolate, the home. We have to try and create an atmosphere of a home. And certain times and moments are very conducive to that. First and foremost, we have to try and have a generous cooperation with the plans of God. There was a lady in the States in California once who was a chastity educator of high school kids. And she was saying it was a rather hard sell job. But she said, you know, in our family, when we were young, our parents didn't have to talk to us too much about these things. Because every time they brought home a baby, we realized that baby was very important. That baby became like the center of our family. And so she said we sort of learned the lessons of love by osmosis, what love means. And of course, the virtues of purity, chastity, modesty, virginity, celibacy, these are all tied up with love. If certain people don't understand these realities, it's because they don't understand human love. And the devil knows the beauty and the power of authentic human love. It's one of the most beautiful realities on the planet, reflection of God's love. And that's why he's done such a wonderful job in messing that whole message up for young people. And so we have to talk about authentic human love from time to time, show people what that means in concrete ways. Try and have that generous cooperation with the plans of God. Be affectionate with people. Everyone has a heart. Your son, your daughter, no matter what age they are or what they're going through or what messages they may give you externally, they have a human heart that needs to be loved and needs to have love communicated to them. And sometimes no is also a loving word. Children need to hear words of loving self-denial from time to time. If they're told no by others, they learn how to say no to themselves occasionally. No to their selfishness or their egoism or their love of comfort. If we focus a lot on others, well, we become easier to live with. We become better communicators. If we know how to love, well, then we'll know the words and the gestures that only those who love know are important. In the lives of those close to us, we'll realize, what does this person need to hear? What does this child need to hear? What is this person going through? What little cross are they carrying at this moment? Does my spouse need a few little words of encouragement? Love means we know how to be there at special times, on an anniversary perhaps, or if there's some little crisis in another person's life. We drop what we're doing and try and be there. We put family first. A man said to his wife once, "Why do you let our son talk to you like that?" The wife answered, "Because that's the way that you talk to me." And so we have to be careful with our words, the way we communicate. Words can be like arrows. They can be directed to human hearts. We should try and make sure that our words uplift. And even if at times we have to correct young people, well, we can do so with serenity, with peace, explaining the reason for things. Not just that things are wrong, but why they're wrong, or why we don't function like that in this family. We don't steal from each other, or we don't take too much food when other people need it, or we don't drink the last bit of milk in the fridge, or we think of others, because that's the way we function here. St. Josemaria used to say that couples have to try and keep their love for each other young and fresh after many years of marriage, like it was before they got married. Keep dating each other. Be aware of the little details. Often love is communicated in details, in small things. Hence the importance of manners. Manners are manifestations of charity. That's why in this family we say please and thank you. We say I'm sorry. We say I was wrong. We watch our table manners, or we try to improve them, because that's part of charity. We make allowances for misunderstandings and miscommunications. Because if we're trying to practice love in our family, you can be sure the devil will try to mess that up. And our best times are always at home and with the family. We plan family time, we plan family fun. We plan well particular periods of the year like Christmas or other times when we are a little more family focused. Our families have to be centers that radiate the gospel message. Cousins, relatives, friends, neighbors should realize there's something different about our family. Or our colleagues should come to see that we love our family very much. A man in Nairobi told me once, when I finish work, I run home to be with my kids because I really love my kids. Some of my colleagues asked me out for a few beers, and I said, well, no, I'm running home to be with my kids because I love them very much. They're always a bit surprised that I love my family very much. Other people should see and notice this. Our Lord says we should be known by the love that we have for each other. It's a great treasure that we have been given. And so we try to promote family values. When we talk about family values, really what we're talking about is family priorities. What comes first always is my marriage and my family. Everything else is secondary. This is the apostolate within the family. Jesus gave great dignity to family life. And our whole mission as parents then is to live out that apostolate, to prepare souls for eternity. And so we have to be careful with mystical, wishful thinking. If only this, if only that, if only I won the lottery, if only things worked a bit better in my home, if only we earn more money, if only this, if only that. Try and learn to be happy with what you have. Be content with what enables you to lead a simple and sober life. Contentment is a wonderful thing. It's a great grace. How many people do you know who are content? When you try to live in this way, well, your children grow up realizing all these messages that you're happy in your vocation as a mother, as a father. They see you're trying to put love into practice and that love is the most beautiful reality on the planet. Where we've been placed is where God wants us to be holy. living out the virtues, dedicating time to our family, solving the problems. We can need often a great sense of responsibility and initiative and patience in bringing up children. They're the treasure that the Lord has placed in our hands as a father and a mother. That's our primary mission. I met a young married man recently who was a 4-year-old child with cerebral palsy. Very impressive man, not a wealthy man, but a very happy man, a holy man. He's not a Catholic. I learned many things just from talking to him. It's a great honor to meet his family, see the beautiful way in which they treat that child. There is love there. And all the time we see wonderful example from St. Joseph, his silence, his service, his faithfulness, his fulfillment of the will of God in spite of contradictions. He's being very focused, always in the background, forgetting himself, being a pillar, being humble, putting faith into practice, the just man, very available to solve problems, full of fortitude. These are all the wonderful array of virtues that we can practice in a regular way. We're building up our children to form great future families. Hence, we have to try and live like a great human being, live a spirit of service in the home. Christ came not to be served, but to serve. And so no jobs are beneath the husband. To be a good spouse and husband, we need to do the washing up sometime, lay the table, sweep the driveway, wash the car. Let your children see you performing chores. There's no chores that your household help may do that you shouldn't be willing to do occasionally, so that your children see that this is part of being a family man. Maybe wash clothes sometimes. Prepare your children for their marriage. Bring up a daughter or a son who can be a great daughter-in-law or son-in-law, because they know how to put charity into practice in concrete ways because they've learned it in their home. Try and give great importance to birthdays. In this family, we celebrate birthdays because we love each other. Try and do something nice for people. Even if we maybe don't have material means to buy presents for people, well, we can pray a little more for them, go to Mass on their birthday. We can all look at the theme song of our marriage vocation at the moment. I don't know if you probably never heard a song from the 60s called Where Have All the Flowers Gone? It was a Bob Dylan song, Long Time Passing. Or in the 90s, there was a song, I think, that says, once upon a time I was falling in love and now I'm only falling apart. There's been an eclipse of the heart. Once upon a time there was light in my life. Well, our marriage vocation is a dynamic reality. There's always a new call to begin again, to start over, bring our marriage up onto a new level, helping our family to improve, to raise the bar a little bit, to have a positive influence in our environment, and to give our children a lead in performing the corporate works of mercy. Have some poor families that you visit on a regular occasion. Go through the drawers or cabinets of your children. See what clothes they haven't worn for the past year, or what toys they haven't played with, or books. Teach them how to pass on all of these things to other families. I was very moved recently. I got a pair of football boots for what was a fairly two poor kids in a poor family. And that was about 2 years ago. And then I went to visit them recently and I asked them, how are the football boots? And the kids said, oh, we grew out of them. They became too small. So I said, oh, well, let me see the football boots and I see what size they are and I see if I can get you 2 more pairs. He said, oh, no, we gave them to a poor boy. I was very moved. This 12 and 14-year-old kid had the initiative. Most people would have called them poor, but everybody knows somebody poorer than themselves. It was very beautiful. And when we practice those sort of things in our family with children, they learn to be generous. It's a marvelous virtue to teach children. They love to be generous. Teach them how to be generous, to give. Because love is all about giving. You don't learn to be generous when we're old. Somebody said once, Wisdom sometimes comes with age, and sometimes age comes alone. You can say that about all the virtues. Generosity sometimes comes with age, but sometimes age comes alone. If you're stingy when you're young, you'll be super stingy when you're old. And make sure your children learn how to be generous so they can be generous in love. And so the family atmosphere is very much needed in order to complement the desired formation each of its members. Children grow up breathing in these virtues. They learn what generosity is or sacrifice is. It's the setting in which to transmit the faith and to grow humanly. There's an educationalist in the States that says that every baby that comes into the world as a self-satisfying hedonistic gorilla. I want my wazifa and I want it now. And I don't care if it's 3 a.m. You jolly well get up out of bed and give me my wazifa because I'm the most important person in the world. And I'm going to scream and scream and scream until I get it. The role of parents is to convert this little gorilla into an adult. And an adult is not someone who can take care of themselves, as a cat or a dog or a hothouse plant can take care of themselves. An adult is somebody who can take care of others. An adult is somebody who can forget about themselves. And so love in the family means teaching children to forget about themselves and showing them that with our example. So it's a school of virtue. We be careful about leading a bourgeois lifestyle, or pagan lifestyle, all comforts, all satisfaction, indulgence, no temperance, no order. Be demanding on these things. We're called to teach people heroic Christian witness, faith, chastity, detachment and poverty, humility, generosity, to handle difficult economic situations, or the extra child, or problems within the family. These are all basic matters of ordinary administration, par for the course. And the family is destroyed by destroying its foundation, stable marriage. And so some people say the greatest thing a man can do for his family is to love his wife very much. Sweep her off her feet occasionally. And the greatest thing a woman can do for her family is to love her husband very much. The founder of Opus Dei used to say, you should treat your husband as your smallest baby. It's not a bad criteria to have. And love is shown in the ordinary little things. There may be very few occasions in our life when you get a chance to practice big things. But the little things come every day. Show encouragement, or love, or affection, or words, or forgiveness, or patience, or unity. When you look at your children's homework, which is their work, might seem very trivial from your point of view, but that's their work that they've been working on all day or a few hours. You go to the trouble of checking their homework. Shows you give importance to their work. Transmits encouragement. Family gatherings are important. We're on time for meals. These are sacred occasions where we're together. Maybe we try and celebrate in a certain way certain Christian feast days, like the Feast of the Ascension or Pentecost. You transmit a message with maybe an extra bit of ugali or with a samosa or something little special at mealtimes, at chapati, because it's a feast day. Sometimes the fastest way into people's hearts and minds is through their stomach. We create a little bit of heaven for people. And so we try to be a dynamo in family life, thoughtfulness, proactiveness, especially if somebody is sick. Very good moment for the whole family to rally around, bring them meals, bring them water, see what they need, take their temperature. You should try and create family fun so that people enjoy themselves and our homes are bright and cheerful. To realize that everyone has a heart. At times we have to sacrifice our likes and dislikes. I like this particular last cookie, but I know my little sister or brother likes it more, so I leave it for them. Sometimes we have to be the grain of wheat that falls into the ground and dies. Try to be a family person. Also remembering the extended family. The household help should be part of the family. shushu up country, teaching the children to give the shushu a call sometime. The golden words of family life, well, please and thank you, I'm sorry, can I do anything for you? Know the others, know their tastes, be aware of their needs. Be on top of the details of the house, changing a bulb, putting a bit of oil here and there. Don't just give things to your family, but give your time, give yourself. Be ready to be last, to go the extra mile. All this is communicating love. And sometimes without being noticed, without keeping the score, without looking for thanks. All the time you're teaching your daughter or son to be a great father and a great mother, or a great spouse. Avoid a social life that is so busy that it hinders the attention that should be given to your family, because that's the most important. Our God, in his deepest mystery, is not a solitary being, but a family, John Paul II liked to point out. Since God's inner life is paternity, filiation, and the essence of the family, which is love. And charity is always manifested by order in our affections. We might have a great desire to watch the final of the Champions League, but maybe our child is sick, or maybe our in-laws come to call, or maybe something else important happens that's closer to home. And perhaps we have to sacrifice our watching of the Champions League, or some other important thing that's coming up, because these are key moments. Trust is the refinement of charity. We trust each other in this family, way of acting proper to any family. So we try to avoid the questions out of place at the wrong time, or the wrong remark. Try and seek for the right moment to ask things, or to act, and to let go. Nothing is achieved by rigidity. We have to try and create a sense of responsibility for freedom and variety in the family. Children also have rights. They have to be given their way sometimes. There's a song that says, love in your heart was not put there to stay. Love is not love until you give it away. And love is wanting life's best for another, even if it doesn't include you. And so we can ask God to help us to be compassionate with the compassion of Christ and his mother. And we always learn to show others the pity that has been shown to us. To have a generous heart that reaches out to other people. In Bethlehem, we see great self-giving. Nobody holds anything back for themselves in Bethlehem. We're called to give ourselves and give ourselves completely. The greatest of all must be the servant of all. We see this time and again in Scripture. I've given you an example so that you may copy what I have done to you. St. Paul in Philippians talks about emptying himself. We empty ourselves of ourselves. And to live in Christ then means to die to ourselves, and Christ showed the depth of his love through service. Service is very important. Love is not sweet words, it's deeds. We have to show it. If love isn't shown, well, then it's not shown. If love is not shown, it's not love. Sometimes our greatest service will be the service of our prayer, the service on the cross, or the concern of the Good Shepherd. I always try to have time for others. I worked for a surgeon once who told us over an operation one day how he was going out to an important surgical meeting one evening. But one of his children, 10-year-old, suddenly asked him a question as he was going out the door. And there was something about that question. There was something deeper. His questions can come like the thief in the night. And so he had the sensitivity to realize there was something deeper. So he sat down with that 10-year-old son. They talked for 20 minutes. And they got to the bottom of what that question was all about. Then I went to the meeting, he said. I was 20 minutes late for the meeting, but I solved that problem with my son. And so we try to have a habitual disposition to forget about ourselves, fulfilling those little duties in the home. St. John of the Cross says to be prepared to lose and see all others win belongs to valiant souls. One of the qualities of such souls is that they will give rather than receive, even until they come to give themselves. And service alone is not enough. No husband or wife just wants service, they want love. And so from time to time, we have to examine ourselves in these points. See, well, where and how am I showing love? Or in the last week or two, have there been occasions when I haven't shown love? And then we seek out our confessor in the sacrament of confession. We have this great reality whereby we begin again. We wipe the slate clean. The most valuable gift we can give another person is good example. In the Magnificat, Our Lady sings in advance the silent revolution brought by the coming of Christ. He has thrown down the rulers from their thrones. In Cana, our Lord moved heaven and earth to serve his mother. She moved heaven and earth to serve her friend. There was nothing she wasn't willing to do for her friend. That's the sort of love we have to show our children so that they function likewise. And often happiness does not come from doing things that are easy. Sometimes it comes from the problems, from the challenges, from the difficulties. And so we're called to great leadership in love, to practicing virtue. Leaders don't just have followers, they have joiners. St. Joseph was a great leader in this regard. The mother is the queen of the home, all should respect her. The special genius of women, John Paul II says in fostering a home. The father is important also, but the woman is the key. Mothers, John Paul II says, teach children what it means to be human, what it means to love, to sacrifice themselves. Great men and women don't demand more from their children than they do from themselves. And children imitate people they admire, even unconsciously. And so virtue means power, the power of love in the home, very powerful. And so I have been told to speak for 45 minutes. I think I've now been speaking for 45 minutes. And so I will end this long discourse here. If anyone would like to ask any question, I'd be happy to try and answer them. I tried to send this PowerPoint early this evening, but I had a connection problem, but I will send it soon. And so Paul Peter will have the PowerPoint if anybody wants it. With that, I end my case.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Father. Very profound reflection. I feel like it's ending too early. Like I still wanted to hear more of it, but well, you're right. We can listen to maybe comments from Paul. Hands if we have a question, if we have a comment.